Okay, just checking. Can everybody, like, when we actually get a couple of people on here, just let me know if you can hear this or not. I'm just testing things out, trying to make sure that whatever we're doing, you guys can actually hear it this time, because I know that was a problem last time, and I don't want a repeat. So I'm trying different things out. I'm testing what settings I can change to kind of make everything work. So let me know if this works or not, and if not, we'll keep working to change it and make it better. Yeah. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and get set up on Facebook as well. Yay, we got sound. Yes. Okay, that's what I needed to hear. So I'm going to, it depends week to week. And also their settings are a little bit weird. So they don't show like views, they show like imprints, and you have to really kind of like search through the settings to figure out how many people actually were actually watching. So I'm not a fan of their way of doing numbers either. So at any rate, I'm going to go live there as well. Just make sure that all the different platforms we have available, and scoot this down just a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I know, it's a really weird system. So it's like, how many people do you possibly reach? But it's not like how many people actually watch the thing. And you have to, like I said, you have to go into the business suite and kind of dig through the settings to be like, okay, there's my insights, that's my numbers, that's how many people actually saw this particular video. It's really weird. Okay, so last week, for those who could hear, obviously that was kind of a problem. For those who could not hear, the simple reality is we went over the topic of anger. And I figured, okay, well, if we're going to go over anger, we may as well go over its antidote. Because the Buddha was very clear when pressed. The Buddha was clear to say that anger is the one thing that he actually approves slaying, he approves killing of. Not a human, not an animal, not a being. Anger. Anger you can kill. Totally fine. Right? Nothing wrong with that. The Buddha approved. And how you do that, how you get past that anger, how you work through that is with patience. So our passage today is going to be on patience, and I'll kind of go into why that's so important. But yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Unless there are any kind of comments or questions. And as always, on both platforms, do feel free to post thoughts or ideas for what we should talk about next. Next week I will still be doing a live stream next week. And then we'll see how things go from there. But yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. For those who would like to offer a chant in their own tradition, do feel free to do so. We will take a few seconds to get ready and then we'll begin the meditation for today. And as always, for those who are not watching while we're streaming live, for those who are watching at other times, do feel free to pause the video, do as much meditation as you want, and then come back and join us again. So we're going to go ahead and get started though. I think today we'll just do, I'm thinking just 10, probably is it. 10 is probably good. So, as mentioned, I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off just a moment. I think somebody was probably trying to call me earlier, and that's okay. I can answer them later. I will practice the patience that I'm about to kind of explain. So, the passage that I'm going to go over, and I've gone over this one maybe, I don't go over this one too much, but it is definitely a good one to kind of think about and kind of to kind of contemplate and reflect on in terms of how we do things and kind of some of the internal conflicts and internal discussions that we might have with ourselves. Right. So the Buddha in this particular one, in this particular passage, the Buddha is explaining that in the past there was this big battle between the Devas and the Titans. These are the two halves of that particular realm. The Titans, of course, being the Ashura. Why Bhikkhu Bodhi translates them as Titans rather than just leaving them as Ashura, I don't know, but I think that I'm pretty sure that's that was what he decided was best. So, but these two forces are battling each other, and so the Devas are fighting against the Ashuras. And if you remember your cosmology, your Buddhist cosmology, you'll remember that this is one of the 6 different realms of rebirth in samsara, right? So you can be reborn into the kind of like warring deities realm. This is the Deva realm, the Ashura realm, right? This is where they reside. They live here. Although, depending, some might say that the Devas are the heavenly realm and the Ashuras are just fighting. But we have the Buddha talking about this in terms of how we're supposed to live our lives and how we're supposed to practice patience. And he really goes into it right at the end. He just kind of like nails the point to that. But I want you guys to think about this in terms of maybe the internal conflicts that perhaps you have. I know I have them. And I know I'm not immune to having the kind of internal discussions or internal monologue with myself that we're about to kind of experience. So with that as a backstory, let's go ahead and get started, right? So the Blessed One said this: once in the past, monks, the Devas and the Titans were arrayed for battle. Then Vipasiti, the Lord of the Titans, addressed the Titans thus: dear sirs, in the impending battle between the Devas and the Titans, if the Titans win and the Devas are defeated, bind Sakka, Lord of the Devas, by his 4 limbs and neck, and bring him to me in the city of the Titans. And Sakka, Lord of the Devas, addressed the Devas thus: dear sirs, in the impending battle between the Devas and the Titans, if the Devas win and the Titans are defeated, bind Vipasiti, Lord of the Titans, by his 4 limbs and neck, and bring him to me in the Sudama Assembly Hall. We already know where this one's going, right? He's already calling it, it's the Sudama, right? The Assembly Hall of the Dharma. So we know this. We know where the Buddha's taking this one. All right. In that battle, monks, the Devas won and the Titans were defeated. Then the Devas bound Vipasiti by his 4 limbs and neck and brought him to Sakka in their assembly hall. When Sakka was entering and leaving the assembly hall, Vipasiti, bound by his 4 limbs and neck, abused and reviled him with rude, harsh words. Matali, the charioteer, addressed Sakka, Lord of the Devas, in verse: when face to face with Vipasiti, is it, Sakka, from fear or weakness that you endure him so patiently, listening to his harsh words? And Sakka responds: it is neither through fear nor weakness that I am patient with Vipasiti. How can a wise person like me engage in combat with a fool? And Matali asks back, right? So they've got this back and forth. Matali says, fools would vent their anger even more if no one would keep them in check. Hence, with drastic punishment, the wise man should restrain the fool. And Sokka says, I myself think this alone is the way to check the fool. When one knows one's foe is angry, and one mindfully maintains one's peace. Basically, don't give in to the idiots. And Matali says, I see this fault, O Sokka, in practicing patient endurance. When the fool thinks of you thus, he endures me out of fear. The dolt will chase you even more, as a bull does one who flees. The fleas here, of course, being like running, not like small creatures. So the bull is chasing somebody who's running, right? So you can find examples of that throughout history. And Sokka responds with a very, very long verse. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's important. Right? Let it be whether or not he thinks he endures me out of fear. Of things that culminate in one's own good, none is found better than patience. When a person endowed with strength patiently endures a weakling, they call that the supreme patience. The weakling must be patient always. They call that strength no strength at all, the strength that is the strength of folly. But no one can reproach a person who is strong because they are guarded by the Dharma. One who repays an angry man with anger thereby makes things worse for himself. Not repaying an angry man with anger, one wins a battle hard to win. He practices for the welfare of both, his own and the others. When knowing that his foe is angry, he mindfully maintains his peace. When he achieves the cure of both, his own and the others, the people who consider him a fool are unskilled in the Dharma. And then the Buddha concludes, and here's where he puts that giant pin, right there. So monks, if Sokka, the Lord of the Devas, could speak in praise of patience and gentleness, then how much more would it be fitting here for you, who have gone forth in such a well-expounded Dharma and discipline, to be patient and gentle? Just the pinning of that last sentence, that he's just hammering that little nail into the wall or into the whatever, putting those two boards together, and just that one last boop, there it is, completely sealed. And I find that to be so beautiful, right? The Buddha is saying, so if the Lord of the Devas can say this about being patient and being gentle and practicing in patient endurance, even when the idiot, whatever enemy you might have, and it could be an external enemy, or it could be the enemy up here, right? It could be your own mind that is, your own angry mind that is what you have to be patient with, right? Sometimes we have to have compassion for ourselves too. We have to have patience with ourselves because, we're just as flawed as everybody else is, right? And so the Buddha is sitting here saying, if he can be patient with those enemies, why can't you be patient with yours? Why can't you practice patience and gentleness? Do you not have a really well-expounded Dharma? Do you not have a nice, set of monastic rules that keep you, that you choose to practice, that you choose to follow, that will help you be that patient, that gentle monk or nun or whatever, right? Do you not have the same kind of capacity for patience and gentleness? You as a person, do you not have that? Do I not have that? I think we do. We just have to put it into practice. And yes, I get it. All right, I'm 100%. Let me be 100% clear on this one. I know how hard it is to be patient. I talked about this last week, right? I talked about this last week when I was talking about anger, and I said, okay, when we're talking about anger, and I said, guilty as charged, right? I get angry too sometimes. It's just a fact. That's reality, right? So it's in those times that I myself and you probably find this in your lives too, maybe not, maybe you do. You probably find in your lives that this is something that you're going to have to experience, that you're going to have to practice, that you're going to have to keep up. And it's especially true when you're angry that you're going to have to work harder at it to keep that patience, to keep that gentleness, right? Because it's so much easier, it's so much faster, it's so much more, instantaneous and immediate to just, when we are very angry, it's very easy to just fly off the handle and say, all right, forget this noise. I'm just going to go and knock over some pins and, whatever the case may be. And there are times and places where maybe if we're looking at it with the lens of compassion, maybe that's what has to happen in that moment. Is it the right thing? Probably not. But is it what sometimes we have to do? Yeah, like a good example, if somebody lost somebody, if somebody just, maybe there was a car wreck or, heart attack or something, whatever the case may be, and you've survived this person, losing this person, that it's totally acceptable. It's totally understandable to be angry in that kind of situation, because, especially if it was a sudden thing, you didn't get a chance to say goodbye. You didn't get that opportunity to say, okay, we're going to make our peace, and then we're going to see you off, and that's going to be the thing. And I'm kind of reminded way back, so back when we were back at Fort Bliss, right, when the Dharma Boots were back at Fort Bliss, and there was the Cielo Vista shooting, right? What did we do? As Dharma Boots, okay, granted, yeah, part of it was because I was being asked to do so, but part of it was it was not as important to be angry at that individual. Yeah, he had some problems. He was very wrong in what he did, right? But we chose to take the patient route and to remember those who were lost. We chose to take the more gentle route and remember them, right? For all of the 22 victims, we rang the bell one time for each one and said their names, right? I remember that very clearly. We could have been very angry, right? I could have gotten super fiery in that particular sermon, but we didn't. Now, is it always possible to keep that kind of thing going? No. We're human, right? We make mistakes. We get angry. We have emotional stuff. I stub my toe just as much as everybody else does, and then I get frustrated by the fact that my toe hurts. That's reality. We live that, right? We experience that, and that's part of the deal of being human. But it's when we give into that anger and we kind of nurture it with more, we let that anger fester, we let that anger grow, we let that kind of, that sense within us, we let ourselves lose that sense of calm, that sense of gentleness. When we do that, we have a problem. When we do that, we are the problem, right? We become the problem. Which again, going back to to that particular sermon right after that shooting, that individual had a problem. He let his anger get the better of him and did some really terrible things, some really dumb things, right? He is the fool that Sokka is talking about when Sokka, the Lord of the Devas, is saying, nah, he can curse us all he wants. We're going to endure his insults and keep on driving, being mindful, being patient, right? Being mindful. When one knows one's foe is angry, one mindfully maintains one's peace. So we get the opportunity, and it is our opportunity, it's also our choice, it's also our responsibility to take a look at whatever is going on and say, okay, I can have compassion for that very angry person. But internally, I'm going to keep my mindfulness strong. I'm going to keep my patience, and I'm going to work towards better things. We're not going to let the anger build more anger. We're not going to let that anger snowball into something much bigger than it is. We're going to leave it be where it is. We're going to check it where it is, and then we're going to practice patience as we move forward. And it's hard to do that. It really is, right? It's incredibly hard for us to, as individuals, to look at what's going on. And there's a lot of things going on in the world that are very, very terrible, right? Some are, minor annoyances, some are bigger annoyances, and some are really, really terrible things. And there's a lot of that going on in the world right now. And it's on us. It's on us to practice that patience that we're talking about and say, and it's on us to not give in, to not let that anger overtake us, to not let that, the poison, which is what anger is, infect us, right? It's on us to say, no, there's a different way. There's a better way. We're going to take that. As hard as it may be sometimes, it's on us to take that. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop rambling and just kind of open it up to questions and comments and thoughts and ideas. So, yeah. Let me go ahead and put the down. Rest my knees a little bit. Okay. So let's see if we can't. It is open question time. So if you guys have any questions or any thoughts or ideas, or maybe talk about a time when you had an angry moment. Okay, so for the guys on Facebook, because you're not commenting, I'm going to go back and read through the comments that are on YouTube. So Jeff commented, I like how you mentioned it would still be compassionate to recognize when the anger may happen anyway. Yeah. Like recognizing the present moment, angry or not, can be a compassionate direction. Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably one of the best films to do this in a really, really powerful way recently. Not super recently. It's been a few years since this one came out, but that old film, A Monster Calls, right? I'm reminded of that one because that one is such a powerful film, and it's such a beautiful, poignant way of saying, look, that's a legitimate source of anger. We don't need to be like, especially so the whole premise of A Monster Calls is kid is losing his mom to cancer, and he goes through these various adventures with a monster that he drew, that he made, to kind of help him process that. And as part of what he's doing with that, when one of the scenes where it really just comes home is he kind of destroys a lot of stuff in his anger. He's a kid. He doesn't understand that, okay, he probably does understand that it was the wrong thing to do. And so what is his dad essentially looks at it and says, well, and the kid is like, aren't you going to punish me? Like, I broke all this stuff. Aren't you going to punish me? And he's like, what would be the sense in that? You're angry for a legitimate reason, right? You did the wrong thing and you're going to clean it up. But, you know, you definitely have to fix it, right? You have to clean it. But what would be the sense in punishing you for that? What would be the sense in punishing you for being angry that your mom is dying? None, right? He shows that kind of compassion. And I really kind of, I see that as a kind of a really powerful way of saying, kind of like Sokka did with Hippocyte. Yeah, he's angry, right? That's the way that's who he is. That's where he is right now. I don't have to get angry in response to his anger. I don't have to go off and, haul off and be like, you're such a terrible being, Hippocyte. We're going to destroy you, and we're going to parade you through the town, and we're gonna beat you and whip you, and blah 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 blah. Right? He could have done that, but he didn't. He chose the compassionate way. He chose the way that says, look, we know that not everybody's in a perfect frame of mind. We know that not everybody's in this good spot, and this is the Ashura realm. He understands that that's kind of what they do. They do a lot of anger, right? They have a lot of anger, and they have a lot of fights, and they have a lot of wars, and that's what the Ashura realm does. Sokka understands this and says, we get where you're coming from. We're not going to meet your anger with more anger. We're going to meet your anger with something better, patience. And that kind of, maybe I'm drawing too much, maybe I'm stretching, reaching too far to kind of bring that point home. But there really is a lot to that. There really is a lot to saying, we can meet anger with anger all day. It solves nothing, right? And that's kind of what the Buddha was getting at. We have this Dharma that gives us, that helps us to be more compassionate, that helps us to see people through the eyes of loving kindness, to see people through the eyes of equanimity, to really see them where they are, right? To see reality just as it is, and work with that compassion to say, okay, well, that's a thing, but we're going to do things better. We have this Dharma that is going to help us to do things better, to be better. I really just, that makes, I'm sorry, that just made a lot of sense in my head. Probably more sense than it made to you guys. So, but yeah. I feel like being fierce but calm is something a lot of folks don't realize exists. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can definitely do both, right? You can definitely be fierce while being calm. You can be fierce without being angry. Don't get me wrong here, Jeff. It is incredibly difficult, but it can be done, and it can be done with that sense of compassion, right? Having that, like, we can actually bring this back to yet another sermon that I've done recently on the Bodhisattvas, right? So we have the Bodhisattva, the immovable wisdom king, and the whole point behind him, right? He's shown with an incredibly angry face. He's not angry. He's shown with an incredibly fierce face. He is fierce, right? He's fierce because he's determined to continue to keep his compassion going. He's determined to keep that compassion strong so that whatever people are going through, he can be there to help them work through it. He can be there to help them generate that wisdom, to generate that tranquility, that serenity, that insight, to be able to move on. Right? I hope I'm getting equanimity without equanimity. I'm sure our Zen friends would have words for that, but can it be done? I mean, obviously there are varying degrees of equanimity. There are varying stages of equanimity. So can you be equanimous without being fully equanimous? Yeah, as you're practicing, as you're getting better at it, right? So especially when you're starting out, you're not gonna be perfectly, you're not gonna have perfect equanimity in all circumstances with all things. It's it's not gonna happen. But you can build that up a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. Having that patience, having that internal calm, that gentleness to say, okay, didn't quite get it this time. Let's keep working at it. We'll keep working at it a little bit more, and eventually we'll get there. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep trying. So. Okay, comment. I don't know if you want to comment, but I've been in a situation. Okay. So the kind of comment, the kind of idea there is that sometimes you have to be a little bit fierce. I hope I'm reading that right. Sometimes, like, everybody reaches a breaking point. Nobody's going to be perfect. Nobody's going to be completely gentle all the time. We are going to try. We're going to do our best with it, and that's ultimately that's the best that the Buddha, the best that the Buddha can ask of us is keep trying, keep doing it, right? Keep practicing, get better at it. But yeah, there are times when somebody will, and part of this is probably performance, right? So a performance of anger rather than actually practicing anger, rather than nurturing that anger, is not necessarily always a bad thing. There are times when, in order to make a point, we may have to have a little bit of a performance of anger. What I would say there is, yes, you can definitely have that performance, but at the same time, you have to know that once that performance is over, you're going to have to explain why you did that. Because people are not going to understand, right? Especially if you're really gentle, really calm, really mellow, really patient. There are some who will think that they can just roll right over you. And as they do, every once in a while, right, they need to have that performance that says, there are limits, there are boundaries. This is one you don't cross, right? And then, of course, explaining that, yeah, the whole reason why I had to kind of give you that show, why I kind of had to be a little bit more assertive, and it probably came off as anger, or maybe it probably came off as anger because it was, right, in some cases. Being honest about that and admitting that we are human too. We have limits too, right? We are not such that we can always get away with being patient and being the bigger person and just being being in that spot. There are times when that's going to fall apart, and there are times when we're going to need to, like even with the example here, right? So what were they doing when they started, right? Well, Sokka wasn't just randomly being patient and calm and peaceful. They were about to fight, right? They were going into battle. They were fighting each other. They were going to war, right? So something had to have happened between them that Sokka went and said, all right, enough's enough. We're suiting up and we're going to throw down. And he did. But after that was over, after the battle was won, and he probably went through the whole battle a whole lot more patient and mindful than Vipassana was, and that was probably part of the reason why he won in the first place. But after that battle was over, he did not extend that anger any further. He did not, when Vipassiti is being, throwing these rude, angry words at him, insulting him and all that, he's just like, nah, bouncing right off. I do not care about that. I'm going to be patient, and you can insult me all you want. It doesn't change who I am. So I hope I didn't just like magically go into some kind of like random tangent. So performances make a difference sometimes, yeah. So I hope that was useful, right? I know that a lot of times it is harder to practice the kind of stuff that we talked about today, and I think that's kind of important. I think it really is important for us to keep in mind that we're not going to be perfect at it, but we've got to keep trying, right? A little bit of patience here, a little bit of patience there builds into a lot of patience, right? What we habitually do is what we become. The more we meditate, the stronger our meditation becomes. The more wise we get, the more mindful we are, the more relaxed we are, the more at peace we are, right? The more patient we are, the more patient we become. So, okay, well, I think I've rambled on quite long enough for one day. I think if it's all the same to you, go ahead and post topics or thoughts or ideas for next week. Although I think not so much in deference to our Christian friends, but in honor of our Christian friends and their upcoming holiday, next week should be the 20th. I might do a sermon on giving and the Buddhist thoughts on giving, because he had a lot of thoughts on giving, and a lot of thoughts on generosity. If that would be something you guys want me to do, by all means, let me know in the comments. If that's not something that you guys want me to do, if you have something else that would be much better, by all means, put that in the comments too, right? Both are totally valid. But yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and close it out here. It is kind of getting close to that time when I think they're about to shut the road down. And especially with the deer being out, I'm going to need a little bit more time to drive so that I can drive very mindfully and very patiently. Yeah. Not all about hitting a deer. Yeah, not a good time. So I'm going to be mindful and patient while I drive home. You all wherever you are, whatever you're doing, be mindful, be patient, be gentle if possible, when possible. Keep this practice up, right? And I'm going to go ahead and close it out there. As always, Dharma Boots, thank you for watching. And we'll see you guys next time.